Hi, everyone. Welcome. We know it's a really busy time of year, and we're really happy that you're here at this webinar. We have with us today our WestEd partners who have been serving a capacity to support our grantees with their outcomes and impact research. And we only have them until July, and so we really wanted to make sure that our AI grantees had a chance to learn from them and get some support from them. We know that you all are coming in with a range of expertise in educational research and evaluation, some of you with a great deal, some of you are beginners. We're hoping this is an opportunity for everyone to learn from each other as well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Reno.
Thanks, Selena. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Reno Mackinnon. I'm a senior research manager at WestEd, and I'm excited for today's opportunity to do a little level setting and some sort of about how we're going to generate sort of knowledge and understanding about some Learning Lab grants, and to get everyone on the same page about some resources we have available, and hopefully have some time to do some work around measurement and understanding and tracking your progress of your grants over time. So if you go to the next slide, I'll do a quick introduction of our project team. So that's me. And then I want to just introduce my colleagues. Lisa Lefevre, Beth Hart, and Elizabeth Burr are all here today, and they'll be talking with you, talking through a few slides with you. And I think we're going to start a little bit with some resources and some basic parameters around evaluation, logistics and evaluation principles, which again might be a review to some of you, but hopefully we'll get everyone sort of on the same page for our thinking for the rest of the day. We'll go through, share some resources around those tools, some tools around those ideas. And then we're going to have some breakout groups where folks can sort of apply those ideas using your logic models and your measurement planning. If you go to the next slide. So as I said before, we're going to give a brief interview. We're going to talk a little bit about logic models in general. I know many of you have completed logic models as part of your grant, so it might be a refresher for you, but I think it's good to get everyone on the same page with some basic terms and definitions that we'll work through for the remainder of the discussion and for moving forward. Then we're going to present a resource that we generated with the Learning Lab team and the WestEd team around an evaluation guide about tracking key outcomes and examples of ways to measure and track key outcomes on both institutional change, instructional change, and student success. So ways to think about sort of tracking and documenting progress and impact on those fronts. So we're going to give some examples from research, and we'll have some that guide that we'll have a link to has references in it if folks want to do additional reading and go a little bit further around those documents. And then that'll probably be about half of our time. And the rest of our time is going to be in breakout discussions where small groups of folks will be able to sort of share and ask questions of one another, reflect on what they've heard today, and then dive back into sort of the measurement plans that are being sort of initiated around your logic model to help sort of serve as a foundation for how you're going to learn about the progress of your work. And you'll have some time to work on that. It's an online document. We'll share the link later to sort of think about how you can think about tracking these types of outcomes over time and do some action planning during the time today to get something that you can take with you. So I think that'll be a benefit. Next slide, please. And really the goals for today are really to think about learning and improvement. So we're trying to get everybody on the same page about, we want to learn about what's happening. I know there's developmental goals, getting things in place, implemented and rolling. But once those things are rolling, you want to learn from them and learn from the progress that you're making. And you want to, in order to do that, you need to be able to measure and understand the project outcomes. And I think the tools we're going to talk about today, be it logic models, the evaluation guide, and measurement plans, will help to achieve these goals that we're laying out here. You'll be able to monitor your work and hopefully not measurement for measurement's sake, but actually embedded in the type of the work you're doing. So embedding learning, informative improvement into your efforts as a grantee. And then you'll be able to reflect and share information with your cohort colleagues. I think there'll be some, like I said, individual work time for your team on your measurement plan, but also be able to ask your colleagues questions and look at other folks' measurement plans, learn from what other folks have put down as sort of their ideas, and then pose questions to one another about how you want to move forward in tracking and benefiting and growing your understanding about the work. So with that, I think we can kick off the first part. Like I said, you're going to be hearing from our team as sort of the presentation format to start. And we'll be popping links in the chat for resources as well. So if you go to the next slide. We're going to start with sort of the foundational piece, sort of thinking about the logic models and the evaluation guide that we can share. It's really focused on centering evaluation around learning. That's what we're doing here. And I think we're going to, as I said before, we're going to focus on sort of three resources that sort of lay that pathway. There'll be the logic model discussion about sort of a theory of change and how that happens. We'll do that. I'll have a slide on that. Then we're going to talk more about the evaluation guide, which kind of puts that into action, thinking about specific outcomes, examples of how those outcomes manifest and how you might be able to measure them. And then finally getting into the very specific measurement plan work about for your project, documenting change, thinking about when you're timing of your data collection, which outcomes you're trying to measure at what times, how you're going to track your impact. So those are the three phases of sort of tools we're going to talk through. But the first slide, next slide, is just like a roadmap to logic models. I understand this is a review for many folks, and you've constructed a logic model for your project already. But today we're going to extend it, like I said, to a measurement plan, allow you to monitor your work. And I think it's really a visual representation of the assumptions that underlie the structure of the project. It connects your work to your expected outcomes. And I think the key when we're thinking about logic models and you want to apply about them in practice, it's thinking about the connections and the relationships, the arrows that allow us to draw inferences. You can work backwards. A tip from this is sort of working backward from the outcomes. What are my goals? Then what would be the outputs that lead to those goals? Is that connection? Can we study that connection? What activities are generating the outputs I see? Are we seeing those outputs from these activities? How can I track that? What resources are generating funding and support for the activities that I do, staffing and so forth. And then ultimately, what issue am I addressing? A lot of these logic models that you've created have laid these things out. And I think we want to use those as the foundation of your learning and the work you're doing. I'll pop in a quick reference that we use a lot that we've used and we wanted to share. It's from the Institute of Education Sciences, one of our regional labs. It's just a knowledge brief that focuses and kind of lays the groundwork for why logic models are important and how helpful they can be. And there are a lot of links in that, but just as a resource for folks, we think that's helpful. We do want to notice as we think about outcomes and as things happen, this is one framing I want to put in front of folks as we talk about today, is thinking about, is there a way to think about sort of the counterfactual as you do your work? Are there sort of what would have happened if this project wasn't in place? Can we construct a comparison group? Can we look over time and do some pre-post analysis? So as we get to the sort of the outcomes, we want to try and challenge folks to have a little bit of that thinking around compared to what, and can we think about those types of to allow us to generate some inferences in our work. So I do want to just put that out there and lay that as some thinking on our measurement work. And move to the next slide. We've created, in our partnership, as I mentioned before, with the Learning Lab over the last few years, we've created a grantee evaluation guide. It's a strong, I think, a good resource for folks to think about as you embark on this pathway to sort of learning from your project and from your work. It's really designed as to help you reflect on the progress you've made implementing the work. It's based on the indicators from the reporting templates that you're using, and it's based on the founding legislation and goals of the program. It has a lot of links in it, as folks you can look to see the background evidence and background literature that led to its creation. I think always similar resources. There are tools in there. In particular, I think there's a particular reference that we thought was helpful was the Partnership for Undergraduate Life Sciences Education. These are Pulse. Group has a series of rubrics for higher educators to think about how they're managing change. So I think that's a very helpful resource that's in the guide as well. It's meant to be an internal resource for you to sort of help you guide your work. It's not a data collection or a reporting document. It's not mandated, but it is a guidebook to hopefully help you think about the kind of monitoring and measurement that you're going to be doing over time in your project, because you have to carry out your project. We see that, we recognize that as well, and sort of implementing it, doing the work, developing your ideas, getting them in practice. But also you want to build in some structures to learn from what you're doing. And that's why we're here today. And that's the foundation we want to build and sort of start to advance in our conversations today. And I think the next part of the conversation is going to shift to talking about the guide and sort of the different types of outcomes you can think about as you sort of embark and build tools around to sort of learn from change at different levels of the systems that you're interacting with. So thank you very much. I'll pass over to my colleagues.
Great. Thank you, Reno. Thank you very much for all of that. Thanks to the Learning Lab team for inviting us here today and also for everyone joining us. I'm going to, on the next slide, introduce a bit about the evaluation guide that has been created in collaboration with the Learning Lab. We're going to talk about some of the key outcomes it provides guidance and resources on, and some examples. So in order to do that, let's move to the next slide, and I'll introduce a little bit about the 5 domains that the guide covers. There are 5 domains. You'll see them here. There's high impact practices to close equity gaps in STEM. There's systematic goals, driven evidence procedures, institutional change, instructional change, and student success. These are all measures and categories that a lot of your work your works and projects are trying to capture. You'll also find in the guide links to examples. And again, these domains are intended to serve as considerations and guidance rather than requirements, but it's a helpful resource to begin thinking about how do you measure, especially when your projects are kicking off at the current stages that they're in. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, we're going to describe 3 of the domains for this webinar, and they are focused on projects outcomes at 3 levels. So we've got the institutional, the instructional levels, and the student levels. I'm going to cover right now the institutional change outcomes. So next slide, please. All right, so what do we mean by institutional change? For each of the outcomes, we've given definitions, if you will. So it means changes at the college, university, and system levels. We're looking at new faculty partnerships and student programs that are supported and integrated into the college and university culture, such as, here's some examples, ongoing funding that gets integrated, structural changes to programs or courses, or changes to policies and practices. Next slide, please. What are some examples then of institutional change? Well, there's changes that occur to intersegmental collaboration and collaborations. So that's where project team includes intersegmental partners, unless otherwise allowed by the grant opportunity, at least higher education segments are represented on the project's faculty team. There could be a mix. Use of technology tools and innovation, that's something else that you can consider. How are you leveraging existing tools such as, flat panel screens, interactive tools, whiteboards, projecting student screens to the whole class, videos, audio lectures. There's a whole bunch of opportunities. Some are looking also at tools such as AI. And creation of forums for sharing best practices also falls into that.
Sure.
Maybe you have communities of
I don't see you
practice.
in the meeting.
We are in the meeting, but I see that.
I don't see your meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Then there are changes to course structures and programs and credential pathways. So these are opportunities to apply learning. Where have those been brought up? You can take a look at contextualized learning examples, collaborative assignments. Those are just some research opportunities and engagement. There's ways to provide supplemental student engagement opportunities. The guide provides some of that. Programs that incorporate tutoring, for example, mentoring, academic advisors, practicums. And then finally, you can take a look at connections to course materials, to workforce pathways. So a lot of exploration in STEM career goals or engaging career-oriented clubs, communities, these type of things. I'm going to pause here for a second because we're going to transition to another domain, instructional change. I'm going to pass that over to Beth.
Hello, everyone. Beth Hart from West Ed. And the domain of instructional change is kind of the level of outcomes that are going to be related to changes in pedagogy. And so in your guide, if you're looking at the PDF, instructional change is on page 4. So on the next slide, we have a definition of what we mean by measuring outcomes related to instructional change. So kind of the meso level, right? We talked about institutional change. Now we're talking about instructional change. And then we have the student outcomes in the last level. So what we mean by instructional change is changes in pedagogy among faculty that also promote evidence-based and innovative teaching practices among their colleagues. So thinking about shifting from pedagogical changes within the project team to looking at changes within other faculty, whether that's at your institution, institutions in your partnership, or even beyond. And this could be incorporating learning from professional development meetings or workshops into their teaching and research. So on the next slide, we have some examples of how this can look. So the first one is increased availability of professional development opportunities for faculty. So this just means that either through informal one-on-one conversations or maybe through a presentation within your department or interdepartmental meetings or events, that faculty and project team members are finding ways to promote their project interventions to broader audiences with your colleagues within your institution and even beyond. So a promotion of could look like a small change to how an instructor is teaching something or engaging students. It could mean a change to a syllabi. It could be new pedagogical practices, the incorporation of new technologies into the classroom. So that's the level of professional development opportunity. So kind of learning about new tools, developmental tools, and then applying them to your work in the classroom. The second point could be around the pipeline. So another type of instructional change you might think about tracking is whether you're engaging adjunct instructors and graduate student instructors in innovative teaching practices. And then finally, we have mentorship. So the extent to which students who are historically underrepresented in STEM are able to conduct perhaps research. Perhaps they have a work-based learning opportunity, a new research opportunity within the classroom as a result of your work under your grant. So that is instructional change. And then on the next slide, we start to think about the last domain, which is student success. And that one is on page 3 of the PDF of the guide. And so when we think about student success at that level, on the next slide, we're talking about improvements in historically underrepresented students' educational outcomes. And that might include their persistence term to term, so whether they stay enrolled in college, whether they transfer from a 2 to 4 year college, whether they graduate, and ultimately maybe the type of credential that they complete. So like a certificate, an associate degree, a bachelor's degree. So we want to track recruitment, enrollment, as well as these kind of later outcomes, these more distal outcomes related to whether they actually complete their credential. So on the next slide, we have some examples of how this can look. So especially for Learning Lab, when we think about educational equity as being part of the work, this can mean disaggregating outcomes by race, ethnicity, gender, or other demographic characteristics. So we might think about students' financial aid status, for example, as a proxy for social class. And some quantitative measures that we might look at are their course taking. So I had mentioned on the last slide, like enrollment. We can think about taking courses, we can think about their success within those courses and their GPA, and then graduation, persistence, and transfer. And then qualitative measures, course evaluations, survey, and focus group data. So that can mean anything that's assessing students' experiences, their perceptions, their confidence, sense of belonging, all of that can be assessed through qualitative surveys. So I know we've shared a lot with you and you have the PDF of the guide. On the next slide, I'm going to pass it back to Reno and we're going to think about how to apply these domains to your work.
I want to just take a quick moment to acknowledge the questions that were in the chat from both Sesh and Melissa. There are resources, and I think that Jamie provided a link to them on the Change Leadership series. I think we can probably direct you to the specific session that maybe dealt with sort of institutional change, intersegmental work, or interdepartmental work. And as part of that is sort of a resource for your work. And we also can talk about more in our working groups today as well. So So happy to talk more about that. And that's laying the advertisement for this breakout discussion. We have a lot of folks here today, but we're going to group into smaller groups. And allow teams to ask questions of one another. You can have a discussion of the content we've raised here. You can look at the resources we've shared, scan them. Also ask questions about what outcomes are you trying to track? How are you trying to track it? You'll have access to a measurement plan resource. It's going to be a workbook that has tabs for every project that sort of defines the outcomes that were listed in the logic models, as well as some details around plan measurement. And folks will be able to work on their measurement plan a bit themselves, as well as look at others and see how other grantees are thinking about measurement and tracking outcomes in their work. So it's going to be sort of a time to refer and read and scan and look, and also do some work, to have some conversation and do some work on your own project efforts as well. So yes, I'd say I'm seeing some questions in the chat. There are issues around our IRB is a key necessity as part of the work. So yes, there are ways to confront these. These are issues that they can be confronted through an evaluation effort with your institutional review board. There's resources within the grantee portal that talk about this. It's been an effort for the Learning Lab to sort of help grantees tackle these types of measurement issues throughout the several years the Learning Lab has been in existence, and there's several resources there that we can link you to. But it is protected information that has some risk to it, so it needs to go through Institute IRB procedures, which we know many of our colleagues on this call are pretty well experienced with, and it's doable. It's just a matter of engaging in the procedure and being clear on the front end about what you're trying to tackle and what you're trying to learn. Selena, do you want to add any more to that about the measurement question?
So Carolyn asked, are we encouraged to make changes to the provided measurement plans? Yes, we would like you to improve your measurement plans. And hopefully you've already seen some areas that you maybe weren't planning to measure that you could measure. A lot of the domains that WestEd explores in this guide are domains that the state of California was particularly interested in for these funds. So we really encourage you to, if you can measure some of these things in your project and it makes sense to measure them, to try to figure out how that could be done. If you're planning to drop a measurement, that's something to talk to your PO or your faculty consultant about. That's a different issue than making improvements. And then there was another question. I wanted to remind folks that we have a lot of resources in the grantee portal, including, as Jamie shared, webinars on change leadership, on how to try to impact institutional change. We have webinars on IRB, one of which WestEd did, and I think we've been trying to hit this very hard, but at the very beginning of your project, reach out to your IRB office and reach out to your institutional data office, because that's often where you're going to be needing to get some of this data you need to collect for student success. And sometimes it's a different process than IRB. Reno, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's very specific and helpful for folks. As far as framing the next work, I think you see the lists on today of the groups you'll be working with, or you'll be in the breakout with, and we'll have either a Learning Lab or a WestEd facilitator in that to answer questions and to help the conversation. But it is really your time with your cohort to think about how you want to spend that time and make it a fruitful conversation. I will just, if we quickly pop to the next slide, I'll show you the guiding questions that I think will sort of, the general questions that will frame the time that we have, about a half hour left. If the link will be popped in the chat as well, but it's also on the slide here. We'll all share the link in the breakouts. But you'll revisit the measurement plan workbook, which has, again, tabs for every project, and review others. So you take some time to look at both what you're planning to do, and feel free to update it. It's a living Google document, so feel free to work on that. And think about how you're going to measure progress of the outcomes you're targeting. It might involve planning a timeline for IRB or getting data collection structures in place over the next 6, 9, 12 months. That might be a worthwhile exercise. Are you going to think about comparison group? What's a valid idea for thinking about a counterfactual condition as you're thinking about the impact of your program? And then when are you going to collect data? We think about multiple time points over time. You want to do a pre-post survey, things like that. These are the types of information that you can work on in your measurement plan worksheet, or as you review others, you can see how they're trying to tackle some of these issues. And then you will have a group of peers in the group, and I think the facilitator will be there. If you have questions, we can make it a peer-to-peer discussion to try and tackle some of these issues, because I think learning from one another is really valuable and will be worthwhile. So I think that's just a sort of an overview of what we're going to do, but we'll get into the small group and we'll see where we get, and we'll be able to share out on the time as far as answering questions, talking to peers, and doing some work planning on your measurement plans. So that's the overview, and I look forward to having folks have a chance to get into these kind of discussions. So with that, we can break out, unless other folks want to jump in and provide more guidance. I think that we can break out into breakout groups.
Okay. So I'm about to open 7 breakout rooms. And again, those assignments that were on the previous slide, they were added to the chat. So there are 7 groups. If you just please go to the group that your project was assigned to, you may have multiple team members here on the call. If you all go to the same group, please check the chat for your room assignments and choose the appropriate room number. And I am creating them, or about to open them now. And we will see you there.
Yes, you can go to the room yourself that you were assigned to.
I don't see an option to join a room. What am I missing? Okay, learning lab screen.
If you scroll down, are you seeing a breakout room pop up with 7 rooms, and there's unassigned on the top, and you can scroll down?
I have 3 windows open on 3 screens, and one of them is your
Yeah.
presentation.
Let me just put you in the room. Yeah, I think you're assigned to room
sure.
2. So see you there.
Can you tell me what room I'm assigned to?
I'm sorry, I can't tell who's talking. Sorry.
It's Horace Krogman. He's
Yeah, let me check.
he's
That was revolutionizing STEM education. Room 3.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'd appreciate some help. My name is Abida Mukarram. I'm with Militia, CSUS, Folsom Lake College, and UC Davis. We're doing the Fast AI Challenge.
Leanne, we don't see our, there, we found it.
Found it.
Yeah. Abida, what was the name of your project?
It's Student Innovators Teaching. It's an AI.
Your group 5.
5, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I need to go to room 3, but I don't know how to get there.
I can see if room 3. Okay, there we go.
Oh,
Jamie, do you think you can handle helping people get to the room so that we can go to the breakouts? Or would it be better to?
yeah, absolutely. I just need to pull up. Okay, I've got the list. I can do that. But when do we come back to the main room?
Do 2 minutes, like 2, I think that's
Sure, you
3
can
minutes before the end.
5. So
5?
people have
Okay.
time to do the survey.
Perfect. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so Gina, which team are you a part of?
UCSD is the lead team. It's a smart learning hub.
Do you know the name of it? I can.
Smart Learning Hub 1.0, a community-driven platform for improving student engagement. I don't see anything that looks like that on
That's
the
not
list.
the name of your project.
Yeah, it might be like your internal name, but your
Yeah, that's not.
learning.
That's it's. Can you go back to the list? Can you change the slideshow to the list?
Yeah.
I'm also opening up our other database so I can see. Let's see. Okay, UCSD, they're the host, right?
They're the host, yeah.
And this is Grand or Fast?
This is Grand.
Grand. Okay, so this one is
I think it's improving student engagement.
Yeah, Yeah, improving student engagement and outcomes equitably. So that one is
I can find that one.
Group 3.
Group 3,
group,
yeah.
group 3. Okay, perfect. And then I think we're good to go.
I think we have Sac State here. Oh no, that's somebody's note.
Just a note taker. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Let's see you guys in a bit. Bye.
Bye.